First and foremost, I'd like to shout out the Super Mario World Restored team for creating these beautiful tracks and allowing me to use them. Um, this is allegedly what the beats would have sounded like for this game when Koji Kondo was cooking them up in the studio. I don't really understand the magic behind it, but I'll put links in the description below. Second shout out I want to give is to this specific tool in Magic of Voxel that I'm using, where I am copying and pasting all these blocks upon a grid. Without that singular tool, the entire project would be just dead in the water. It was vital. Without it, like having to manually move each block precisely 16 voxels over, I would not have had the patience to do that. Here I am abusing said tool, and I'll get into this later, but with exception for like when you're close to the edge and you gotta do it block by block, do it in do big chunks and then copy those out. This little level element right here is a great example for something that I was dying to test out. That like while I was making all of the models for this game, something that I was constantly thinking about was how will I translate these levels from 2D into 3D? And one thing that I really wanted to experiment with was modifying existing level architecture that is like static 2D, just like a big rectangular prism, and finding ways to add shape and depth to those level elements. And I think, with this one, I didn't do anything crazy, but I think it just gives the level a little bit of a nice touch. Another thing that the game kind of does for me is you'll see that these elements, even in 2D, are layered on top of each other, which in this case perfectly lined up with how I wanted the level to curve and turn, which I will put on screen now, I suppose. I am trying to make this level match up with how it looks like it would turn on the map screen, because the overworld and the levels in this game are just beautifully aligned. Another point that I did a little goof on, if you're going to be copying and pasting a bunch of objects, make sure that you just do it right the first time and then do the copying and pasting. Like, fix the palettes and then copy and paste them. I went back and did it later, but I just cut out that footage. Here's a much better example for, oh dear god, you can see like when I try to copy it out over too big of spaces, I guess you don't see it anymore, it doesn't copy all of them at once. If you're trying to cover large spaces of ground in Magic of Voxel, just make like a big 16 by 16 chunk and then copy and paste that all over. This level element right here, was in all of Yoshi's Island. This is the one that I was the most looking forward to building, because it's the most structurally complex. You have the 3-tiered jumps, you have the slope down the middle. Can't really see it the way the video is, not the way I've organized everything within the level, within Magic Voxel's editor, but there's a little dip in the ground right after you slide off of it. I guess I can put that on screen too. But yeah, I was just super excited to see what this would look like, because like the 3 diagonal pillars from earlier, it already has that kind of built-in 3-dimensionality to it. So it's just another great example of how this game lends itself so well to being recreated in 3D. I guess I'll mention now that this video is jumping around. There's so many big cuts because this is a chopped down version of a like hour long process, which is sped up by 10 times. Everything you're seeing now is 10 times sped up. I had 10 hours of footage, and that's just of what I recorded. I did like even more work just off the record. Here's the little divot trench that I was talking about. Oh, here's an excellent little point. One of my favorite parts about working on this project and getting really in touch with Super Mario World is that I never knew that there was that's a little 3-up, that moon on top of the 5x5 cloud space. That's a cute little, I don't remember if it's 3 or 5-up. But I just never knew it was there. I did not know that such a thing existed in Yoshi's Island 1. Here's another great example of just don't do this, because you can see if I try to do too much, it doesn't fill out the space I'm trying to copy and paste. It would have if I was doing 16 by 16 bricks. So this, I realized while I was building this that I never made the goalpost sign. So very fortunately, I got to record some things that you guys could see the actual modeling process, which is just a blast. I love it when, especially for models like this that are pretty simple with characters and enemies. Those were frustrating, and the tile sets, oh my goodness. But these are just super satisfying to watch them all come together. You can see me adding some tilt, some back and forth rotation, just the little modifications that I could make everywhere I could to make it just a little bit more three-dimensional. Oh, it's such a fun little experiment. Here I am trying to get some even more forward back motion in there, but eventually I realized I was just trying to make it too complex. Clean up the back, make sure everything is nice and neat, make sure it took me a while to get the shading to be just right. You have to pull up the reference, make sure everything was a-okay. But yeah, not to toot my own horn, but I am very, very, very proud of the artwork for this project. Oh, the little grass. Just a chef's kiss. Yeah, here we go. I'm kind of doing what I was warning about earlier of chunking them into 16 and then copying and pasting, but instead of doing that, I'm one by one chunking all the big sections into 16 by 16s. First of all, it's just easier to get the levels out. Second of all, if you try to export this, instead of ending up with like a couple hundred objects per scene to work with, this left me with like 64,000. I don't know if the math, because each 16 by 16 square that I'm making is 256, so it only takes 4 of those to get to a little bit over 1,000. Here we go, it's the blender process, importing each thing. Yeah, imagine importing, maybe there's a more efficient way to do this, but 64,000. Oh, I guess that was, no, it was more like 20,000, because there's also material files. This is extra boosted. This is 100 times boosted. The skybox making process, I couldn't figure out how to make this process the easy way, so I just decided to do it the hard way and extend out and make a custom skybox texture for this little level and then wrap it around. It took me a while to figure out how I could manipulate and move it without having any warping go on, where the texture would stretch. I wanted everything to be pristine and pixel perfect, and after that little Google search I found it out. But boy howdy, was it a tedious process. Set the origin, set the rotation, set the origin, set the rotation. Oh, just all of this was frustrating, but so worth it. It all looks so beautiful in the end. Yeah, here we go. And then the lighting, how the lighting catches the clouds as well. Here I am making the, I'll put another picture up of the overworld map, making the walls for the stage, because you can see there's some height to Yoshi's Island before the water kicks in, which I also tried to make, but then realized that was like a bit of a waste of time. Yeah, here we go. Making all that water, and then I export that into here, and then tile that out, which spent a lot of time experimenting with what's the maximum size of water for something that I just ended up not using. Why did my computer just disable its screen? There we go. Okay, this part I had brought by the time I was making this, I had already experimented with moving everything into Unreal, which is the engine that I will be building all of this in. And something that I realized was that if your level geometry is too complex, the collision will also be very complex. And if it's too complex, then the collision will not be accurate. There's only so much collision you can make. So I could either make the collision by hand, which risks human error, or I could go back and break down my level pieces into much smaller bits that would be easier to generate collision for. So I did that, just chunked everything down into much smaller pieces. I had to do this for a bunch of different elements, but this is just the piece that I recorded. Yeah, there were like 9 different final versions of this, 6 actually, final versions of this level, because I just kept bringing it into Unreal and kept finding more issues. But speaking of bringing it into Unreal, it is time to see what it all looks like. Is it? Oh. No, I guess I have more recordings. Let's see, the importing process. Yeah, I just had to bring them all in one by one by one by one by one. In the background you can see the skybox, the nice blue, which I made by just scaling out the mountain box that I made earlier and then extruding all of its faces upwards and then joining them at the top. It looks a little bit weird in Blender with all the reflective geometry, but oh, now it's time to go into Unreal and you'll see how it looks much better in Unreal. I believe the first thing I do is look to the sky. Yes, I do. So what I did is I just put an ambient occlusion on the skybox so that it doesn't do any shadows or shading. Just has a nice blue glow. The lighting on this took a while to get it looking right. If you look in the top right corner, you can see the directional light 4. Counting directional light 0, I had 5 lights going on. One to cast that primary shadow, another one facing in the opposite direction so that that primary shadow wasn't just an aggressive, it was really sharp and not great looking. That little stone piece, you'll notice, is not quite accurate to how the game is actually built. And that is because I realized if I left it as 100% accurate, then Small Mario would be able to sneak in, which defeats the whole point of the blocks around it. So I just added in another layer of blocks. God, this piece, I spent a lot of time just standing at the top of that little hill and just looking around. Right, with the 3 extra directional lights, I used them to light up all the mountains so that none of them were too aggressively shadowed, except for that one little piece over there, which I don't understand why. I also made sure to make an extra material texture for the pipes so that I could give them a little shine, but I think it still needs a little bit of work. Altogether, I'm so happy with how it came out. Everything just looks so bright and colorful. And it really does feel like a dream come true to see everything all assembled in this beautiful, way too powerful Unreal Engine 5 lighting system. But I think that's all the notes I have left to add. Here's the water that I didn't make to show that I did not make use of the earlier big old water thing that I made earlier. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you will stick around or watch whatever other videos I post in this making process. Yeah, thank you for whatever support you can offer. This project has become my life. It really did absorb me, and I am looking forward to finishing it. Alright, I think I'm just gonna let the rest of the video rock from this point.